Hello, welcome to An Abundance of Books. My name is Julia, and today we're doing the January wrap-up. My January wrap-up, like it's the authoritative one. January was a very strange month for me. This wrap-up's going to skew a bit negative, but I think we thrive off of negativity. I read 11 things, though quite a few of them were very short. The cat wants to get into my room. I guess I'll let him. Are you gonna behave? I also wanted to theme this because about half of the books that I read feature a dead mom trope, which is cool. Like, you know that it's a trope for Disney princesses, but you didn't think it was quite so prevalent across so many genres. I will also try to remember to talk about the words that I'm doing for my TBR challenge, what I read to fit the prompt, because it changed quite a bit from my TBR, but I still got it all. You are a mess. The first book that I read this year, and the first one with the dead mom trope, and the first one that met one of my categories words, is The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. This fulfilled my prompt for Blue Jay. So there's a bunch of birds on the covers and the magpies feature prominently. It's about this woman who finds out she has a family inheritance because she doesn't have any money right now after her mom passed, because of course she did. You're gonna make this audio so challenging, mister. I did a whole vlog about it. You can watch that for more of my complete thoughts, but I found it just really repetitive and boring, and the mystery was pretty obvious. It also like had a twist that didn't mean anything, and I hate that, like just a twist for the sake of a twist. So I ended up giving it 2 stars, which is sad. Next book with a dead mom trope is Race to the Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is a middle grade book about a Navajo middle schooler who finds out that she and her brother are descendants of the Hero twins, and they go on a quest to save the world? Save their dad, but save the world. I thought it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. It didn't have much character building in it, which I was looking for. And it was very like, we're going here and then we're going here and then we're going here. It didn't feel like the characters have any agency, but this did perfectly fit one of my categories prompts, which was Buffy for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The main character in here, what is her name? Najoni. She is called Monster Slayer. Like, that's one of her mythological titles, so worked perfectly. Next for Dead Mom. This is a weird way to categorize things, I'm just realizing. But anyway, The Whisper Man by Alex North. This is a thriller novel that I actually ended up really liking. I know a lot of people didn't, but I thought it was really fun. This also fulfilled my prompt for Butterfly, because there's a butterfly on the cover and also in the story. It's about a town where there were some kidnappings and murders of young boys 20 years ago, and now present day it's happening again. So did the guy that they get, was he actually the guy, and is there a copycat or an accomplice? And I thought it was really fun. It was very much vibes. Like, the vibes in this were really good, even if the plot sort of suffered. But this was also detective fiction that I actually ended up really liking, because everything that you know about the detectives relates to the case 20 years ago. Like, they all have a lot of trauma from that. So it makes sense that their story is involved here. Like, they have character moments from this. I find detective fiction is usually just very removed from the current case, but this was integral to this story in particular. My only disappointment is I thought one thing was gonna happen, or like I had a theory, or I was prepared for something, and then it didn't happen. So like, the idea that I had in my head I thought was better. So it's hard to fault the book for that, but it does sort of rely on the ending. So I give it 4 stars. I still really enjoyed it. Next for Dead Mom is Bewilderment by Richard Powers. He's getting into all sorts of trouble today. This I picked up on a whim at the bookstore. I was trying to be more adventurous with my book buying, and shouldn't do that. Heather lied. This is a Heather's pick, who's the CEO of Chapters or something. And no, not good. This author has apparently written The Overstory, which won like a Nobel or Pulitzer. Yeah, Pulitzer. And this is the next book that he wrote after that. And I don't know what Overstory is like, but this ain't it. It's about this dad and a son who are recovering from, guess what, the mother's death. It's touted as like science fiction, but it's not really. It's got a lot of environmentalism in here, but like environmental panic. Like, I have some anxiety related to that, so if you have similar environmental anxiety, I would steer clear from this. It tried to do some science fiction-y stuff with like memory and space, but it didn't commit hard enough either way. There were also some like potentially harmful things in here because the kid isn't fitting in well with his peer group. He's not developing at the rate that he should be, and he's got some PTSD from his mother's death and potentially ADHD and autism he's been diagnosed with from various professionals, and the dad like doesn't believe them and doesn't want to medicate his son and just thinks like spending time in nature will cure him, which is so frustrating because there are like, it's a half-truth because there's lots of benefits to being outside for anybody. Like, it is a good experience, but it can't take away from like medicine. And it was just very frustrating to read. There's some interesting stuff in here, but it wasn't worth it. And the ending is like insulting. I feel insulted by the ending. The final book in the Dead Mom saga is The Silvered Serpents by Roshani Chokshi. This is the sequel to The Gilded Wolves, and it partially involves Severon's adoptive / abandoned mother, who is sort of coming back into the picture in this one in a weird way. And it also talks about his birth mom and a bit of what happened to her. And yeah, didn't like this book. 2 stars. It didn't have any of the charm of the first one. It's a very found family heist. It's compared to Six of Crows quite a bit. And it lost that charm in this one. They're all fighting. Sorry about that. I was talking about Silver Serpents and about how no one gets along. So like the found family aspect is kind of lost. And there was so much setup and payoff in the first book about like Zofia especially is like an inventor, and she'll invent something and then you see how it can be used later. Like, this didn't have any of that. It also suffered a lot from middle book syndrome and like doesn't end even a little bit. The first one wraps up the arc that you're doing, and this one not even close. The writing as always is really good. Like, there is something that pulls you in, but if you've read Gilded Wolves, I would recommend just sort of leaving it at that. Though currently I am spite reading The Bronzed Beasts, the 3rd book, just to get it out of the way. Let's keep the pain train going and talk about Twice Shy by Sarah Hogle, a book I DNF'd, and I'm very sad about it. I pre-ordered this when it came out last April, I want to say, and I read it almost as soon as it came here. I made it like 2 chapters and I didn't like it. And I was like, you know, it's probably just the time, whatever. And then I picked it up again and I made it maybe 4 chapters. And I don't like it. And I don't know how to explain it. I didn't make it very far, so it's hard for me to make a true assessment of it. But I'm sad because I loved Sarah Hogle's first book so much, but this ain't it. So she's getting on hold. Let's finish talking about books that are bad, and then we can talk about books that are good. I promise I did read some that were good. Kim Jiyoung, born 1982 by, I don't actually know. Cho Man-Joo, translated by Jamie Chang. I read this because I had just finished watching Singles Inferno on Netflix. It's a Korean dating show, and I thought it was so interesting the parallels, or lack thereof, between like an American dating show and a Korean one. They're extremely different, and there are so many things that like don't translate into English well. Specifically, I'm thinking about when they say, can we talk casually? Which basically means like, can we stop referring to each other by like the formal names that you use? Like, can we be on a first name basis, basically, is the idea. And I just thought that was so interesting, and so I was interested in maybe reading more about Korean culture. And this book is really acclaimed, so I wanted to see it. And it's a very strange book. It opens with the main character, Jiyoung. She's sort of having a dissociative episode where she isn't herself and she believes that she's other women from her past. And then you go into her past, like right up to birth, I think to birth, and then all the way up to present, and just dealing with all of the misogyny that South Korean women have to go through and how she feels about it. And it's mostly just depressing. It's not as different from American culture as I was hoping. Like, I didn't really gain any new insights. It's just as sexist, but in a more overt way. American culture, we all know boys are favored for jobs and stuff, but it's much more formal in Korea, it sounds like. So it was mostly just a depressing read. I feel like I didn't get out of it what I wanted. It's an interesting book, but not necessarily a fun book. I give it 3 stars. So like, good but not great. We have 1 4-star to talk about, and then after that, it's all 5 stars. The 4-star was How to Be Fine by Jolenta Greenberg and Kristen Meinzer. Kristen. I always want to say Kirsten. Kirsten Dunst has ruined me for Kristens. I'm sorry. It's subtitled something like What We Learned from 50 Self-Help Books. And it's an interesting idea, but as soon as you start it, they say, we have a podcast where we do this. And this is like the book that was birthed from that. And it's so obvious so immediately that like this is a format that works much better as a podcast. I did listen to a couple episodes and they're really good because they insert audio of them from their week trying out the book, sometimes talking to their husbands, sometimes like they had to do affirmations one day, so you listen to them do affirmations. The book is a nice overview, but I don't think you're gonna really get much out of it. It's broken up into sections, what we like, what we don't like, and what we wish they did more of. This is a good self-help book though, if you are bothered by how rich white lady the self-help seems to be. Like, Rachel Hollis comes to mind as a pull yourself up by your bootstraps, we all have the same amount of hours as Beyonce. Like, this does a very good job at addressing where self-help falls short. I was gonna say, though, it doesn't like suggest alternatives because like you can't really suggest alternatives. That's the problem. It was a really interesting read, and the women narrate it themselves, and they have very interesting lives, and there's fun anecdotes in there. So I would recommend it. I give 4 stars. Now on to the 5 stars. The first one is Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. This has been everywhere. I'm sure you've heard of it. It is a woman who was overheard talking about her murder mystery book, and someone thinks that she is actually a hitman, and so they hire her to kill her husband. It's very goofy and silly. I saw someone comparing it to like a cozy mystery, but more modernized, and it feels very much like that, where you kind of have to be on board with like how stupid all the characters all the time, but it's really enjoyable. Finley is such an interesting main character, and it's a wild ride, and the ending was just so exciting. The sequel comes out in February, I think, so I'm gonna get my hands on that immediately. I know that I'm not saying much about it, but like, it's fun to discover it as you go along, I guess. Then I read I'm Afraid of Men by Vivek Shraya. This is a very short, it's like 90 pages or 90 minutes, memoir of a Canadian trans woman talking about what she learned growing up as a boy, what she internalized. It's just very interesting feelings about gender. I read some of the negative Goodreads reviews after that, where they were like, she's conflating this and this. And it's very interesting because it's not like meant to be a scientific book or anything. It's very short. It's very stream of consciousness sort of, and like meant to be a memoir. But there's so many meaty nuggets in it that I just sit and think about. I think this is going to be a book that I come back to again and again and get something different out of every time. She's an excellent writer and really insightful and really introspective. Like, she knows herself and can see a lot of sides to things. It's yeah, I know I'm rambling about it. It's great. 5 stars. You should read it. Now we come to the final 2 books, the most exciting books that I have ever read. And those books are Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon and Kissing the Coronavirus by MJ Edwards. Now, I picked these up and thought like, wow, what great companion titles. I'm just gonna read some weird monster erotica. It's gonna be so funny. But like, these are both 5 stars. For like quality? Maybe not quality, but like doing what they set out to do. This is just like a hilarious romp that nails its tone so perfectly. And this is like legit science fiction. Like, the science fiction aspects of this are so well done, and there's world building, and I did not expect it from either of these two. Let's talk about this first because it's itty bitty. My friend bought this for me as a joke, but the joke's on her because it was great. Every page has a laugh out loud moment on it. One of my personal favorites, his tongue so soft and hot, like a chunk of microwaved fish sloshing around inside my mouth, paints a picture. Or this classic, even the sound of the virus made her ovaries clash together like cymbals. It's stupid, it's ridiculous, but it's smartly done. Like, there's really good jokes in this. I don't know if I want to endorse this book, but I am very happy that I read it. Just what a wild time we live in, where a book like this can get, well, not published, but printed and delivered to me. Like, it's just technology, 21st century, it's all wild. Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon was such a weird experience. So I bought it because of the cover, just because I love this cover, but like mostly as a joke. But again, the joke's on me because I really love this. So the story of Ice Planet Barbarians is a group of women are abducted from Earth. They're all 22, single, and hot. Because of course, they're kidnapped by not these aliens, but little green men, and are taken away, but then they crash land on this planet and then meet these aliens. And the meeting between Georgie and Vectal, who's these guys, was so well done. They can't speak each other's language, but like the way that they learn to communicate, it's done surprisingly well. And there's some world building stuff because he basically instantly falls in love with her because of circumstances. And so he's very protective over her even before she can sort of understand what's happening. But then you do get to know what's happening and meet lots of characters and go on lots of adventures on this cold, cold planet. And I didn't expect it, but I'm so pleasantly surprised. Ruby Dixon's writing is especially strong. Like, it's just really easy to get into, but holds your attention. My understanding is from the, I wanted to say unlicensed, but just like not associated with the publisher version, very little was changed in here other than removing an early on sexual assault scene in the book. That's gone now, but was still kind of upsetting. Like, it's off page, but it doesn't involve these two. But I'm recommending Ice Planet Barbarians. Okay, the sex in it does get a bit gratuitous. It's never gross, but there's like 7 sex scenes in 300 pages. Like, it's a lot. It maybe didn't need that many, but it is far better than I could have ever expected. And yes, I did order the sequel. Okay, those are all the books. Just realized I didn't talk about the other ones that I did for the challenges. Binder was one of my roles. I did that for How to Be Fine because it's a bind up of all of the 50 books that they read, and there's a binder on the cover. And Bows, I ended up changing that to just be an audiobook. And the best audiobook that I read was Finlay Donovan is Killing It. The voice actress doing it, like, she's doing an amazing job. She has so much emotion in the characters. She's just doing a great job. If you are interested in it, I would highly recommend the audiobook. Okay, that's it. These are the 11 and a DNF books that I read in January. Definitely a weird month. A lot of short things, a lot of things that I didn't like, but I read a good amount. January is always a pretty slow month for me, and I think it's because I don't care about 2021 releases anymore, and I only want to read 2022, and there's virtually nothing out. But we're good, we're back, we're in the swing of things. On to February. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you very soon. Bye.